Okay, thank you. Good. And anyone is welcome to jump in. Uh, and Lauren, you're the crowd control guy. You're doing a good job of getting them out and keeping them out, apparently. Uh, this is another plot. It's just south of Martin Luther King Road. If you go way back in Google Earth, this was nice, consistent farmland all the way up and down the line. But then they put in this street, but more importantly, they put in Martin Luther King Drive, and I think this was a big dirt pile. I'm convinced that it's the residuals of a stockpile. There's about a 2 foot drop right here, grade change, if you will. This feels a lot more like the original ground. It's still not great ground, but it's not too bad. And it's shaded pretty heavily. None of these trees were here in the old days. So this is all kind of an artifact of man's intervention on the landscape. But, and it's a field, this particular field is owned by the city of Waterloo. And I think Mike gets a hell of a deal on it, and he's almost never gotten any corn off of it, rarely. So because of the grade change, I kind of split it into two halves of the field. So it's 950 feet long this way and a couple hundred feet this way. And you can see my replications again. This isn't the same pattern as we had in the other one, but I do have replications. And this was really a variety test. Um, no, I'm going to refer to the seed company and the seed company people, but they're not quite ready to let their name be a part of this conversation just yet. I hope we get to that at some point. But I ran across some seed company people and in some other meetings, explained what I was doing. And some of them had kind of been following my work and they were interested. So we kind of made a little deal where I said, well, tell me a variety that you think is going to do well in these wide row environments, and tell me a variety that you think is going to do poorly, and then give me one that's kind of in the middle, and then pick another one that may not even have been in your test, because they had run some tests. And I said, don't tell me which is which. So I ended up got 4 variety numbers, got them from my nephew. And then the first thing I did is turn them into generic CVI seed numbers. And even in this meeting, I won't name companies and I can't name varieties, but and part of that is what the seed company people told me is they weren't willing to share information until they had more replications and more years of data, which is why this stuff takes so long. But they don't want people jumping to conclusions and running off half-cocked without data that is consistent and repeatable. So it's a high integrity move for them. It's just frustrating for us out there that don't have, thousands of acres and interns running around all over the place. So this is what we have here. Now, my good friend Jack Boyer, I kind of explained what I was doing, and okay, I got 4 replications. Okay, what's the variable in the replications? We got a bunch of different rows, different row widths. Okay, and we got different seeds. He says, so what's your baseline? Well, no, they're replications. So Jack basically forced me to have the first 4 rows of each of these 4 replications be the same variety. And I'm going to show you the yield for that variety. The field quality deteriorates pretty badly as you go from east back into west. Down here, it's pretty light again, and it's just a mess. But and this data has been reviewed with the seed company, and they said, thank you, Mr. Boyer, for forcing the baseline. We got to do better than that, but it was better than nothing. So this ends up being roughly what the plot looks like. The variables are 30-inch baseline, a 60-inch single, a 60-inch twin row, which I have said is the way I'd really like to think wide row corn should be planted, and a 90-inch twin. And then I had some other in-row plant arrangements I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to be a little elusive about those. So going back to what I did in the other one, if you take all of these, and they were harvested one row at a time, except in this case, I take my little combine and go up to where the grade changed, and you could just see the yield and the vigor of the plants falling off. So as soon as the corn got ugly, I'd stop, write down the distance, back it up, let the combine clear through, record my data, and go off and do it again. So every one of these rows was harvested halfway across the field, one row at a time. And when I got all done with that, and this was the better data, this stuff up here was really pretty bad. I just went in and harvested at bulk. So this whole row up here is one data point that's 62 bushels for all of the treatments. And then you can see it getting worse, 36, 20, and 5, almost, just knocking down the corn. Oh, down here where it's a little better, this batch averaged 97, this 89, 86. This really surprised me because this stuff didn't look very good. And this stuff down here looks so bad, I almost didn't get out of the truck. I did the little hand-picked sampling of these. I'm not going to report on that today because I got this machine data and it's much better data. But I did do individual hand-pick for most of the variables through this. So terrible corn, if there's any 250 bushel, other than you, Bob, on the call that hasn't clicked out already, you're probably thinking about it, but hang in there. So this is what the data looked like if you start on the east side of the field where corn's pretty good, not so good on the edge where there's some weed pressure, and the city of Waterloo took out row 1 for me because I was apparently in there right away. And so this first row didn't look very good. Tried to adjust for that. And then basically these are different treatments as we go across, but the Microsoft Excel trend line does a really nice job. That's the way the field feels when you would drive past it. And down here, it's just not very good. So that's the single row data. So now, and I'm gonna walk you through this. I don't want to torture you with data, and I do have a summary slide that wraps it up pretty nicely. But it's kind of important to understand what I did and the enormous number of variables that were in this plot. And the seed, most serious researchers and the seed company people just shake their head and say, I can't believe you're doing this, and the other side of that, you must be crazy or whatever. I don't know if this was really only 101 bushels, but that's what the number said. But it shows the field falling off. This is the same variety in 4 different locations, and these are basically spaced as you go across the field. This is the individual variety for that replication. So the first one, we designated the first one to be the baseline variety. So the blue dots or the blue bars are all the same variety. But in the case of the orange bars, these are 4 different varieties. Does that make sense? So it says here, okay, that 107, 118, not too big of a deal. 99 to 125, yeah, that one don't look so good. Here, neither of them are very good, but the difference isn't real wide. So this is 30-inch versus 30-inch, okay? The only difference here is in the corn variety and the soil. And you know that weather trumps everything, and after weather, soil trumps it. So I'll take a poor variety in good soil any day over a great variety in bad soil. No surprise there. Now 60-inch rows. And again, first liar doesn't have a chance. I have no explanation for why this 60-inch did so well. This did poorly. This did pretty darn good. And here you really kind of ignore the blue bars from here on out. So here we have 100 versus 130. Well, that's pretty big, but maybe there's some issues with that one. This, I think, is pretty clean data. So it's 70 versus 107. That's a lot of difference. But here I got 4 bushels from 30-inch to 60-inch. Well, I'd take that most any day. I think anybody that's growing 60-inch corn would love to have that good of performance on their 60-inch corn. And then down here, it falls off again. So there's a clear winner here that says, yeah, I kind of like this stuff. The next one is 60-inch single hills. And don't torture me with asking too much about hills, but I basically modified the planter so I could plant the corn in more or less hills. Like great grandpa used to do it with a wire roll planter, but it wasn't that clean and it wasn't working real well. So don't take that data too seriously. In fact, I'm gonna skip on past that. But one of the reasons I'm sharing that is I think there's potential there, but it takes time to develop that. So this is now 60-inch twin row. And here, up here, I would expect in north-south rows for 60-inch twins to far outperform or significantly outperform 60-inch singles, which they did not here. But here they did. The 60-inch twins beat the 60-inch singles by 20 bushels and got close to what the 30-inch was. So it's like, well, okay, why is that? And my answer is, I don't know. I have a pony in the race. I knew what I wanted to win, but I'm too old to try to tell lies because I can't keep track of what I told who. So I just have to tell the truth. And this is what the number said. So over here, we have the 30-inch at 99, 60-inch at 95. Now the twins fell off over here. And then down here, they fell off pretty poorly. Yeah. Okay. Now, Twin Hills, I only have one bar there. If you go back to the original layout, I'm going to jump back there real quick. Go back to this layout. The way I did this, I'd make a round with my little 4-row planter, and my round. This is a poor old Bob story. Okay, so you just got to tolerate me. I'd go up 160 feet, turn around, come back 160 feet. And after every round, I would either change the variety or the row spacing or the meter hardware because of my hill thing. And so it was just taking me forever to get these 4 acres planted. I was like 2 days into it, into the first half of the second day, and patient Graham was up there waiting to have me come plant his corn. And I'd get a call every couple hours. Did I need any help? I think it's going to rain in a couple days. And I finally got mad and said, okay, enough of this crap. I'm not going to do any more of that. So I abbreviated the test a little bit. That's why I only have one of those. That's an excuse. You're not supposed to have excuses. This is what the 90-inch twin did. So the 90-inch twin, and you would expect it to fall off significantly. Nominally, it would be a third of what except we are going back to the same population. But here again, the 90-inch twins did quite well. They did better than the 60s. They came in there really pretty darn strong. The 60-inch twin is the yellow, I think. No, the blue is the 60-inch twin. So it got close to the 60-inch twins. 90s aren't supposed to do that good. There's too much benefit with all that opportunity space. They're not supposed to do that well, but they did. Lauren, you're keeping an eye out for comments, right? Anybody throwing a bullshit flag yet?
Yeah, I'm still watching the waiting room. I got a few in there, but nobody's replying on the chat on the waiting room to identify. So I'm not letting them in unless
they're gonna boot them out. Right? If they're doing Zoom, they should know how to do chat. And then down here, the 90s come off pretty bad also. But here, the 90-inch did pretty darn good. Only 7 bushels off a 30-inch corn. You just wouldn't believe that. Okay. And then you do not, okay. And then this is the conclusion for me. And it wasn't till I talked to seed people, the seed company people through this, that I really understood what it was saying. But it's interesting for me that in all these different goofy treatments, there's a dramatic spread up here with this variety, and about half the spread with this variety, and even less down here. And the absolute yield, okay, it's a little less, but this variety just kind of doesn't seem to care. And this one does. And to me, that was profound. These 3 boxes on this set of data is probably as close as I've got to my, what I call my Pulitzer Prize picture for the year, because it says that I've really made a mistake by not paying more attention to varieties as we've gone through the years here. And ultimately, as the winter rolls on here, I'll go back and figure out which varieties were which, and see if I can glean a little more information. And part of why this meeting is so open is I think there may be other people that are doing some of the same kind of things.
Zach, you want to jump on and ask your question? I know the answer already, but go ahead and ask it about 3060s.
Well, okay. Hello.
Hi, Zach.
I work for Fauna Like Land and Water. We had a gentleman in our county get a SARE grant to do 60-inch, and that went well. He's not on the call, but his father-in-law did a variation of 60s where it was 60, 30, 60. And I'm back home for Christmas right now, and at the date of leaving, didn't have any data. Just looking at the pictures and the field, it looked pretty promising. So I was just curious if you were going to do, if you have tried that variation, or are you looking at
I think I got, the question is 30 versus 60, right, Lauren?
3060, like we would have did at my place the first couple of years.
Right, and I did it in the 2017 plot also. The answer, Zach, was that it came out roughly the same as the 60-inch, as pure 60s. It's certainly,
okay,
there are people doing that. I think, go ahead.
I just said, okay, I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. And part of the story here is there are so many possibilities. And when I was faced with, well, how about variety 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, when I started screwing around with this stuff, I took a deep breath and I says, look, everybody and their brother up and down the road is doing split planter trials on varieties. There's all kinds of data out there. I don't have resources or time to get into the variety war thing. So my approach was, when I would talk to a grower about doing, a plot on his farm, I would default to whatever variety he had the best luck with on his farm for his system, and that's what we would use. Now, what this says here is, if you go to the first box, if he's doing good with 100, well, 101, but the wider row stuff didn't do very good here, and so he would be hurt even though I let him pick the variety. So the variety thing that has to be dealt with. Leroy Dykeman, who had preceded me by about 20 years on this stuff. I was at a conference once. These guys were talking about a soil a society, or what, American Soil Society. And they were all wrapped up in the varieties, and it was driving them crazy because the variety numbers kept changing. As soon as they would have enough sample size that it mattered, the variety number would go obsolete. There'd be a new variety show up. Then they'd have to start over. And that was part of my disdain for worrying about varieties. But now that we have the leverage of a few more people doing this, I think there's some opportunities, and I'll speak to that in a minute.
Well, one thing I'll add is if you're going for the biomass on the understory, 30-60 fails pretty fast. That's the first thing Bob warned me. You know, when we first saw the tram line study up there, what was that, 2015 or 16?
Yep, 16.
With the cover crop, you know, the gap the cover crop gains, and you know, you see the rows right on each side of it, how good they're going to do. But something about that 30-inch row in between the 60s, it just doesn't follow through. And you know, that 30, you know, the twin 30s or whatever you want to call it, the population just gets jammed in there so tight. I think you don't see the same benefit we did on on just the 60-inch tram lines.
Yeah, it canopies so early, the cover crop never really gets its feet on the ground. Yeah, thanks, Lauren, for bringing that up. I got my corn head on now. I should have made that point. Thank you.
I mean, you know, Bob's famous words to me, I'll admit it nowadays. He's like, Lauren, you're wasting a third of your floor. So I will give him credit. He was right.
It doesn't happen that often. Thank you. So my conclusion on this, soil is the major driver of the regional differences in this. Within each of the replications, I don't think it's a soil deal. Variety appears to matter significantly. I did have some issues with, I don't think that 60-inch twins got side dress. I don't like working with 60-inch twins because my equipment don't fit down between the space. I've got a beautiful little 48-inch wide tractor and a side dress rig, but it doesn't like 60-inch twins because my twins are spaced at 10 inches in the twin spacing, so I just don't have room. It's a 50-inch opening and don't work. And I did not have very good population control on the 90-inch twin hills because of the way I executed the hill package, if you will. I do think, and frankly, I am much more motivated that 90-inch twin rows shouldn't be kicked off the playing field. But it's probably going to be more important to do a whole bunch of things right. I think somebody was trying to say something.